Okay, hello everyone. Hopefully you are hanging in there. So we are talking today about thesis statements. And this is not an occasion to panic, because thesis statements often are among the last things that a lot of writers end up writing in their papers. So if you don't quite know what yours is yet, that's okay. So you are doing peer review this week. So that's going to get you another set of eyes on what you have so far. And maybe you'll get some ideas about what to add or expand or what's confusing. And that's intended to help you strengthen your argument. So figure out what still needs to be supported with outside sources or with further explanation. And as you're strengthening, you're gathering a lot of information. And the goal of a thesis statement is to shape that into an easily comprehensible sentence or two that lets the reader know where the paper is going. And that can be a really tall order, because you have so much information about your topic. So let's say I'm working on this food desert paper that I've used as an example. I have a ton of information. What food deserts are, where they are, how they form, how to define them, where they are in Memphis, how they impact mental health. I need to prove causation to my reader. I need to prove that the areas that some articles are talking about are the same ones that other articles are talking about, even if they're not talking about the same thing. I have all of this stuff I need to accomplish in this paper. I have all of this information. And the thesis says, okay, stop. In one sentence, maybe two, what is the briefest summary of what I'm trying to argue? So, there are a couple ways you can approach that, and this is how I like to do it. So there's a website posted in content and in the description that's called Eric Simpson's 5 Ways of Looking at a Thesis, and it gives really good examples of how to write a thesis statement and what a thesis statement is supposed to do. And this website was originally shown to me by my freshman comp professor. And in all of the time since then, these tips I've found have never failed. So here are a couple just sort of background points about thesis statements. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some of these during class, but this is to kind of get you started thinking. So the first of these is a thesis says something a little strange. Basically what that means is a thesis is not a fact. So when you're going through all your information, you got to weed out the difference between, okay, which of these things are just facts, like a definition of what a food desert is, and which of these things are argument. So if I'm arguing here that food deserts in Memphis contribute to poor mental health, that's an argument and not a fact, because that's something I'm trying to prove my point. Someone might contradict it. So we also have a thesis creates an argument that builds from one point to the next. So we talked about logical fallacies earlier this semester. So a thesis makes sense. It's not going to leap from one point to another. In this case, we probably won't leap immediately from what a food desert is to going into something specific about mental health community outreach, because the reader's not going to have all of this stuff in the middle that's helping me put that together. A thesis we also have says something about the texts or the articles or the subject you are discussing exclusively. So it's specific enough that you can't trade out something else. So I'd want my thesis to be specific enough that no one could switch out food desert and something more general, like poverty. I want it to be specific enough that it's just about this. And we also have a thesis makes a lot of information irrelevant. So it is your main point. So we know that you're focusing very narrowly on something. So here I'm focusing on impact of food deserts on mental health. So my reader knows right away, I'm not interested in food deserts and COVID-19. I'm not interested in food deserts and like children's teeth. There are a lot of papers about that. I'm not interested in those things. They know that I'm focusing very narrowly on my subsection. So those are 4 of the 5 ways of looking at a thesis, 4 of these tips. And the 5th one is, I think, the most useful and something we're going to spend more time on in class, but that is the magic thesis statement. And that format is, by looking at blank, we can see blank, which most people don't see. This is important because blank. So I always leave out this which most people don't see part because it doesn't sound like my voice when I'm writing, but this format is really, really useful. So that's not to say that a good sentence makes a paper perfect. It's not that putting this sentences has any kind of magical power. But what it does is it makes you organize your thoughts. Because it makes you say, okay, by looking at, and if you're saying the impact of food deserts on mental health, it makes you organize to your next logical thought and say, okay, we can see that food deserts are causing this poor mental health. And then it does this. This is important because, and it gives you this kind of so what question. Why are you making this argument? Why is it important? And that structure here at least helps me work through organizing my thoughts. So when I'm going through my paper, I'm organizing, okay, so by looking at food deserts and mental health, we can see, and I talk about the causation here, and then why is this important? So maybe it's community outreach. Maybe I find that I don't know why it's important and I need to do more research. So there's all kinds of possibilities, and it makes you think about your topic in kind of a different angle and help you figure out, do you have all of the pieces you need? So that is what we have for the video this week.